Thank you. Honorable members, before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the virtual mini plenary is deemed to be in the precinct of Parliament and constitute a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes only. In addition to the rules of virtual sittings, the rules of the National Assembly, including the rules of debate, apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in the sitting of the National Assembly. Members should equally note that anything said in the virtual platform is deemed to have been said to the House and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested to mute their microphones and only unmute when recognized to speak. It is because the mics are very sensitive and will pick up noise which might disturb the attention of other members. When recognized to speak, please unmute your microphone and connect your video. Members may make use of the icons on the bar at the bottom of their screens, which has an option that allows a member to put up his or her own hand to raise point of orders. The Secretariat will assist in alerting the chairperson to members requesting to speak. When using the virtual system, members are urged to refrain or desist from unnecessary point of orders and interjections. We shall now proceed to the order, which is debate on vote number 22, Correctional Services Appropriation Bill. I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson. The Deputy Minister of Correctional Services, Nkosi Patekle Olomisa, Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, John Jeffrey, Ministers and Deputy Ministers from sister departments, Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services, Honorable members, Acting National Commissioner of the Department of Correctional Services, M.S. Tobahale, the Inspecting Judge, Justice Edwin Cameron, members of the National Council for Correctional Services, members of the parole boards across the country. We want to start by quoting our esteemed stalwart, Mayor Charlotte Maqheke, when she said, and I quote, "This work is not for yourself. Kill that spirit of self and do not live above your people, but live with them. If you can rise, bring someone with you," close quote. As honorable members will know, Mayor Charlotte Maqheke was also the first woman in South Africa to be appointed as a probation officer at the Department of Correctional Services. History recalls that she was frequently seen in the courts in Benoni and Boksburg, where she appeared on behalf of youth who committed various crimes, seeking alternative sentences to incarceration. As we present the budget vote for the Department of Correctional Services, I can think of no better call to action to our officials across the board than the word of Mayor Charlotte Maqheke, from the administrative capital in Pretoria to our most remote centers in Members Bay. In the work you do, seek no personal glory, as this work is not for yourself, but rather for all South Africans, so that together we can create a safer South Africa. We want to bring together reformed parolees, victims of crime, rehabilitated offenders, civil society, and South Africans from all walks of life, and make South Africa rise in line with a vision by progressive leaders like Mama Maqheke. We present before this August House a budget amounting to 26.1 billion rands for the 2022-23 financial year, allocated as follows: 15.2 billion rands for incarceration, 4.6 billion rands for administration, 2.6 billion rands for care, 2.3 billion rands for rehabilitation, and lastly, 1.2 billion rands for social reintegration. Government resources are constrained. The Department of Correctional Services has adopted an innovative way to save costs and efficiently use the allocated resources. One of the programs we are using to cut costs in the department is a self-sufficiency strategic framework with a restorative justice element. So far, self-sufficiency has set the department on the right course to save taxpayers' money and position the Department of Correctional Services to have a restorative justice impact in communities. Together with the Deputy Minister Holomisa, we took a policy decisions affirming that correctional services is to find means to self-sustain itself in terms in line with the Correctional Services Act. The department has farms, land, dairies, bakeries, workshops, and many other amenities, which position us to survive without having to rely on government funding. I am happy to inform this August House that vegetables costs have also been significantly reduced in the department. 8 management areas out of 48 are no longer buying cabbages, spinach, beetroot, and onions. They produce enough supply for inmates' rations. We will increase the number of management areas that are able to do so in this financial year. 5 management areas, namely Goedemut in the Free State, Cape Wood in the Eastern Cape, Roygrond in the Northwest, Waterfall in KwaZulu-Natal, and Zonderwater in Gauteng, are now fully sustainable on red meat, while Drankestein in the Western Cape and Zonderwater are also no longer procuring chicken meat. The estimated cost savings, Honorable House Chairperson, I hope all honorable members are listening. As a result of implementing self-sufficiency initiatives in the department, amount to 163 million rands. I must repeat, Honorable House Chairperson, because this worth celebration by all South Africans. The estimated cost savings as a result of implementing self-sufficiency initiatives in the Department of Correctional Services amount to 163 million rands, which we have saved the fiscus, and we aim to invest it back into the department to do more. And I hope honorable members will notice this good work done by officials and the offenders. Wonke aba-offender manje ayasebenza. Akusekho umuntu olala nje mahala. During this financial year, we will heighten production in our livestock and plant production farms and textile workshops. We have invested in a new machinery that will assist in the mass production of uniform for both inmates and officials. We are currently training inmates and officials to run production lines with our new machines. The target is simple: skill inmates with functional skills and increase our production capacity, while they also learn skills that will enable them to be productive in society upon release. House Chairperson, transferring skills to inmates remains an important program of the department. We want inmates upon their release to be productive in society. The few incidents of parolees who re-offend in our communities has really caused untold damage to the image of correctional service. It has also caused untold damage and suffering to the families of the victims and to the communities themselves. I'm happy to see that the trial of the murderer of Tassin van Wyk has commenced in the Western Cape. I'm convinced that justice will prevail, and I hope that this trial will send a clear and unambiguous message to other parolees that reoffending does not pay. I also would like to highlight the good work of some of the rehabilitated offenders, like parolee Andrew Moleko from Marikana. Is one of them in the Northwest. He learned entrepreneurial skills while incarcerated. He currently runs a successful construction company that also employs a number of parolees. He is one of our many parolees who are good ambassadors of rehabilitation programs of the department. We commend the companies which gave him opportunities and reiterate that the criminal record does not render someone completely unemployable. With limited human capital, our officials are doing extraordinary work under difficult circumstances. We appeal to communities not to deny parolees opportunities. We have seen with parolees like Moleko that access to opportunities contributes towards their rehabilitation. During the 2021-22 financial year, 90% of sentence offenders within correctional sentence plans completed correctional programs. With regards to offender development, offenders participate in long occupational skills programs, short occupational skills programs, TVET college programs, general education and training, further education and training, and grade 12 national senior certificate. Offenders also receive psychological, social, and spiritual services. House Chairperson, the voted allocation for offender development is supplemented through the National Skills Fund allocation. The current agreement of 87.2 million rands for the training of 5,480 offenders has been extended from 31 March 2022 to 31 March 2023. This funding ensures that more offenders are provided needs-based skills development opportunities as part of the rehabilitation program. The accreditation of offender training facilities and workplaces has been enhanced. The Manufacturing, Engineering, and Related Services Sector Education and Training Authority assisted in formalizing the National Skills Development Management System, thus resulting in correctional facilities including Boksburg, Hoshimampuru, Drankestein, and Biza Makata being approved to provide accredited programs. We are also working with the service sector in accrediting female hairdressing sites, salons at Durban, Biza Makate, Polsmo, and Worcester correctional centers. Much work has been done in terms of addressing the identified gaps, and we are confident that we will meet all the accreditation requirements. It is our resolve that all training programs offered in our correctional centers are accredited and meet the industry standards. Formal education has been doing extremely well over the years. Our matriculants continue to surpass the national pass rate. It gives me great pleasure to announce that we have registered a new school in KwaZulu-Natal region named Sicebo Molwazi, which translated means armed with knowledge. This school is already operational, offering grade 10 to 12 subjects. The National Electronic Media Institute of South Africa is another institution that we have formalized a working partnership with under the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies. This partnership will be piloted Microsoft digital literacy programs to offenders. These partnerships are also explored with the business sector and NGOs as we enhance relations and collaboration for the purpose of empowering offenders with skills for employability, job preparedness, and to create job opportunities. The department is also looking at programs that will empower victims of crime. As reported in the previous financial year, when we had helped a victim of crime family, we are looking at expanding. The department will also be extending correctional programs in this financial year to remand detainees. We have developed structured programs to assist remand detainees to develop general life skills which they could apply during detention and upon their release to prevent future offending behavior. The programs will focus on several areas such as emotional health and well-being, problem solving, and intelligence, and so forth. We are also encouraged that the National Treasury has approved 100% retention of revenue we generate through self-sufficiency. This is a major boost to the program as well as we will reinvest these resources towards its growth. The department has commercialized its arts and crafts products to enhance and self-sustain some of its programs. Various in-house projects with the use of inmates' labor are currently underway to refurbish other amenities such as kitchens, recreational facilities, offices, accommodation. Not everything in the state needs to be outsourced. The state must be a pioneer in some of the markets, honorable members. It can't be a tender for everything. There are things that we can do, and we must do them. What is now evident is that there is more ground that we can cover through our in-house build program. We are now repairing tower posts to augment our security infrastructure. The tower posts offer several advantages to our security enterprise. An elevated or aerial view provides a bigger spectrum where one official can effectively conduct monitoring. Every movement is also noticeable from an aerial position. As a result, disturbances, be it outside cells or in the inside, can be spotted in real time. This old technology still works. The in-house build program will also be covering the construction of community corrections offices. The Mpumalanga Department of Education has reached out to the Department of Correctional Services on its Ranza Shikolo Shawena campaign that seeks to mobilize communities to always own and safeguard their schools. It further encompasses repairing damaged school property. Deputy Minister Holomisa was on Tuesday in Mpumalanga, where the two departments signed a service level agreement for us to refurbish school furniture for the Mpumalanga Department of Education through the utilization of offender labor. We have similar agreements with the Gauteng Department of Education, also with the National Department of Education. This is born out of the type of work that Correctional Services has been doing over years, refurbishing damaged public infrastructure. Some of the schools in Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Gauteng, and the Eastern Cape have had their infrastructure restored by Correctional Services inmates, fixing ceilings, painting walls, rendering basic maintenance work, and cleaning is in the package that DCX makes available through offender labor. And communities have welcomed this initiative. They see it as offenders playing their role into paying back into society and making a positive contribution. It also helps us with reintegration. The department's production workshops continue to manufacture and supply furniture for various client departments. Among them are the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, Housing, Water, and Sanitation. It is with great sense of joy to announce that the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure will be placing orders for furniture with Correctional Services production workshops. An increase in the orders placements means that we get our production workshops to be more productive. As inmates cannot sit idle in their cells, more inmates will be at work, more inmates will be meaningfully occupied. Honorable members, overcrowding in our facilities continue to be a perennial challenge that requires holistic attention in terms of crime deterrence by our communities. For as long as people continue to commit crime, we are thus left vulnerable to possible overcrowding in correctional centers. Although there has been a reduction in the inmate population over the years, the correctional system remains under pressure. Over a period of 5 years, from 2015-16 to 2021, we have recorded a reduction of 12.99%. In real figures, we have moved from 161,984 to 140,948. Sadly, there continues to be spikes we encounter from time to time. We cannot avoid overcrowding if society does not play its role to fight crime. Crime must be fought, and this will enable us to reduce the level of overcrowding in our facilities. In terms of capital project, it is worth mentioning that construction of additional bed space at Paris has achieved 85% completion and is scheduled to be finalized in the 2023-24 financial year. This upgrade project will provide an additional 176 beds. The upgrade and refurbishment of Mtonjeni Youth Center will regain a total of 640 beds spaces and transform the center into the state-of-the-art integrated security system facility. This project is scheduled for completion during the 2022-23 financial year. Another milestone is the refurbishment of the Umzimkulu Correctional Center, which was finalized during the 2021-2022 financial year. The facility will be operationalized during the current financial year. These are great achievements on capital project. Work is also continuing when it comes to the welfare of our officials. The waterfowl management area was struck by a tornado in 2019, leaving serious destruction to the center and the residential area of our officials. As a result, the officials whose houses were damaged became displaced and had to be relocated elsewhere in the terrain. We are pleased to announce that the refurbishment of 42 staff houses will be finalized during the month of June 2022. Honorable members, allow me to provide an update on the matter involving the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services, following a Constitutional Court judgment handed down on the 4th of December 2020. The Department of Correctional Services and JICS have been working on the implementation of the judgment and the creation of a JICS bill to ultimately replace Section 88(1)(b) and 88(a)(4) and 91 of the Correctional Services Act 111 of 1998, as confirmed by the Constitutional Court to be constitutionally invalid. We remain hopeful that a solution will be found on the impasse to ensure we comply with the judgment. It is now common knowledge that the Department of Correctional Services, like many other departments, suffered budget cuts. The compensation of employees' budget cuts amount to 11 billion over the MTF period, ending 2025. Honorable members, one of the challenges that the department is faced with is the reality that the demand for services will not stop or decline just because there is a budget cut. Instead, service delivery expectations will continue to grow irrespective of whether resources are commensurate with such standards. Therefore, this challenge calls for a change in the manner the department delivers its services. This will inevitably have an effect on how services are delivered at the head office. For the department to be persistent and purposeful, we are now decentralizing some of the officials to move from head office to area management. Honorable Chairperson, I'm pleased to announce that the Department of Correctional Service will be embarking on a recruitment drive for learners. We are looking at over 3,000 opportunities, which will diversify the skill set that we intend attracting in our workforce. As honorable members will be aware, we have not been able to recruit in the past 2 financial years due to COVID-19. On the international front, the department is committed to exchange programs and benchmarking visits in the area of mutual interest, which include staff training and development, security rehabilitation, reintegration, parole administration. We also participated in 2.
Honorable Minister, I'm afraid your time is up.
Thank you. I submit, Honorable House Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Honorable Magwanisha.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister Ronald Lamula, Honorable Deputy Minister Nkosi Pategile Ulomisa, Ministers and Deputy Ministers present, Inspecting Judge, Judge Edwin Cameron, Acting National Commissioner Mr. Tobahale, distinguished guests, honorable members. This budget debate takes place at a time while the country is still trying to understand the impact of the devastating floods which wreaked havoc in KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape in April 2022. We are pleased to hear that the Department of Correctional Services, through their self-sufficiency and sustainability model, contributed towards the social relief efforts in KwaZulu-Natal. Minister Lamula, when he presented his political overview of the budget to the committee, reported that items such as eggs, meat, milk, and bread, which were produced by inmates, were donated to the needy families, and these brought much needed relief to communities. We are also pleased to hear that the Department of Correctional Services has removed items such as eggs and pork from their procurement list as a result of the self-sufficiency and sustainability initiatives. As the committee, we have recommended in our budget report that the Department of Correctional Services should add more items on the list in order to address the current budget constraint facing the department. In our visit to correctional centers, we have observed that self-sufficiency and sustainability model is bearing fruits for the department. The minister has alluded to some of them. In Tzaneen, for instance, the committee noted with appreciation that in 2021-2022 financial year, the center did not procure any vegetables on the market because they produced 95,417 kilograms of vegetables, saving the center over 692,000 rands. In Boksburg Correctional Center, they produce one of the best furnitures through offender labor, and these products are sold to other government departments. The furniture for the building of the High Court has been produced in Middelburg, has been produced in Boksburg Correctional Center. Honorable members, amid the COVID-19 pandemic, the class of 21 inmates in matric managed to achieve an impressive 89.93% pass rate. This is an improvement from the 81% achieved in the 2020 academic year. The committee would like to congratulate Usetubeni Youth School for achieving 100% pass rate for the last 5 consecutive years. Chairperson, let me also take this opportunity to congratulate the best learner in the Department of Correctional Services Facilities, Mr. Kanyile Faber from Brentford Youth School, for achieving 88.71%. These results are evidence that when an opportunity is given to young people, that can change their life for the better through education. The committee calls upon the department to invest more in education, skills development, and rehabilitation in correctional facilities. In order to realize this, there should be a significant shift in the way the department structured their budget. Currently, rehabilitation program is only allocated 10% of the overall budget of the department, while incarceration takes 56% of the budget. This is against the spirit of the White Paper on Corrections, which states that rehabilitation should be at the center of the departmental activities. Chairperson, community correction is an important component to facilitate social integration of parolees into the community. A number of challenges confront our community corrections on a daily basis. During our oversight visit to different centers across provinces, we observed that there was a high number of abscondees in the system of community corrections. There is a need to strengthen the system of community correction so that the community should feel safe and have faith in the parole system. In the same breath, the department is called upon to finalize the review of the parole system in general. Victims of crime are an important stakeholder in the administration of our criminal justice system. The department should do more to educate our communities about the important right of victims of crime to make representation during parole hearings of offenders. More effort should also be put in encouraging victims and offenders to participate in victim-offender dialogue. The involvement of victims and the community in correctional matters is an important milestone in realizing the objectives of the White Paper on Corrections to ensure that corrections become a societal responsibility. The Department of Correctional Services has over the years been a subject to a number of investigations over maladministration and corruption. This has put the image of the department in a negative light. We call upon the department to reverse this by implementing consequence management in all deserving cases. The Department of Correctional Services is a labor-intensive department. The White Paper on Correction says, and I quote, "Every member is a rehabilitator," close quote. Our oversight visit gave us an opportunity to observe firsthand the hard work done by officials of the department in rehabilitating offenders under their care. During these visits, we also learned with disappointment that there are officials who bring contrabands such as drugs, dagga, and cell phones into the correctional centers. The department must ensure that all those found guilty of such misconduct and criminal acts must face serious consequences. The Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services, under the leadership of the Inspecting Judge, Edwin Cameron, continues to carry out their mandate with great distinction, and the committee, as a committee, will reaffirm our support for the work done by the Inspectorate. Currently, the Inspectorate is finalizing its business operating model, which should assist them to function better than the current arrangement, where they need to heavily rely on the Department of Correctional Services, the very same departments they must oversee. As the committee, we are concerned that up to now, we do not have a permanent commissioner of correctional services. The challenges at correctional services need stability at all levels of strategic leadership. Lastly, Acting Chairperson, as a committee, we are deeply concerned that as Parliament, once again, we might not meet the Constitutional Court deadline with respect to the Sonke Gender Justice Constitutional Court ruling. The bill has not yet been introduced in Parliament. We plead for a speedy introduction of the bill by the Executive. Honorable members, please support us in supporting this budget vote of the Department of Correctional Services. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next speaker will be Honorable Engelbrecht.
Thank you very much. I have no intention to repeat all the very nicely articulated points of the department's vision, mission, and mandate, as is so often done during occasions such as this. We are here to perform an oversight role and assess performance. In terms of that underperformance, understaffing, and underspending by 1.3 billion rand are the major achievements of the department, with key management positions remaining unfilled. The ratio of members to inmates remains decidedly unsatisfactory, with escapes being a regular occurrence, along with the significant risks and danger associated with it. A very significant challenge correctional services has to face is the budget cuts necessitated by the prevailing economic climate and the declining state. In the department's 22-23 annual performance plan, reduction and reversal of the wage agreement over the 2021 MTF will continue to have a negative effect on the funded establishment of the department during the 2022 MTF. The department will be required to reduce its staff complement, which will negatively affect new initiatives, close quote. I think this is an understatement, to say the least. This budget allocation will aid in preventing the department from fulfilling its constitutionally mandate effectively. I don't know if the involvement of the department in terms of the state capture had a subconscious influence during the budget allocation process, but it can't be denied that the blight Bosasa left on correctional services was severe. Parliament would, however, only be able to deal with this once the Speaker ceases to stall the process. The sooner this can commence, the better. The manner of how this is going to be dealt with will be a determining factor in assessing the credibility of Parliament as an institution by our citizens. During a recent oversight the committee came across can be ascribed to a failure by the Department of Public Works to fulfill its most, to the point where correctional services had to make alternative plans to try and do maintenance work on facilities where they could. This trend will continue and probably be expanded upon in future, because the one thing every department is certain of when it comes to public works is that it cannot be relied upon. This might be a blessing in disguise. To quote the Honorable James Self, prisons work where prisoners work. Instead of paying public, can be utilized to maintain the facilities and do something constructive with their time. I can't think of a single reason that would motivate the continued existence of public works as a government department. Those prisons visited during recent oversight, where prisoners worked, were in a much better position than those where all inmates had to do all day was to hang about with little to no exercise and nothing constructive to occupy their waking hours. Rehabilitation is a core program of the department. The white paper on corrections in 2005 stated that rehabilitation is at the center of departmental activities. Yet the rehabilitation program is the sixth smallest allocated program in it. of the total allocation for the department in 2022-23, amounting to 2.319 billion rand. With notable exceptions, little is offered in way of improving the skill set of inmates, making a mockery of the rehabilitation aspect of the department. While most of us do not want to hear this, it is a sad fact that inmates have very little chance of leaving prison a better person than when they entered.
Honorable Engelbrecht, can you try again? You are muted. Can you unmute yourself? Honorable Engelbrecht,
Thanks, sorry so much.
you proceed. Thank you. You can proceed.
Finding employment upon leaving prison is understandable. If we are to address the very serious social problem, then a lot more needs to be spent on the rehabilitation program. And serious attention needs to be paid to rehabilitation holistically. Currently, South Africa has a very high reoffending rate. According to NICRO, 87%. For as long as we ignore rehabilitation as an imperative part of correctional services responsibility, this will not come down, and this will also continue to drive the crime rate up. The prison system suffers under overpopulation, apart from erecting new facilities.
Honorable Engelbrecht.
Chairperson, just on a point of order, Honorable Fabio, it seems there's a bit of a connection problem, but I also see that one other member gets on the line, and it also disturbs, obviously, the signal of Honorable Engelbrecht. Let's see if we can just maybe get him back, because I saw another member was interrupting. Thanks, Chair.
No, it can't be true that the other person was online, because it was a video only from Honorable Msimang. I'm watching the proceedings. You are left with 30 seconds, Honorable Engelbrecht. I'll give you another 30 seconds. Can you proceed? Honorable Engelbrecht.
Urgent attention by allocating a meager 4.6% social reintegration will show. These are but a few of the biggest challenges I have identified given the time available. I truly would be the last we see of political meddling and its devastating consequences for our country. I wish the officials of correctional services all of the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Engelbrecht. My apologies for that. The next speaker will be Honorable Yako.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, the EFF rejects Budget Vote 22 on correctional services. Today, the South African prison population sits at over 155,000 inmates, while the official capacity of our correctional centers is for 110,000 inmates. This overcrowding of correctional centers makes it impossible for any correctional lessons to take place. The prisons have become a breeding ground for hardened criminals. They are centers in which the collusion between convicted criminals and prison officials produces the bloodiest of crimes. They are incubation centers for disease, for crime, which is planned and organized from the inside and perpetuated by those on the outside. When we adopted our new constitutional order, we wanted to have our correctional centers as rehabilitation centers because punishment for crime has to be corrective, not punitive. The Department of Correctional Services has failed in almost all aspects in reorientating focus to rehabilitation to these prisons. Topping to this failure is the deeply rooted corruption in this department. Take, for example, the case of Mr. Ngele, the Regional Commissioner for Correctional Services in KwaZulu-Natal. Over the past few years, Mr. Ngele has been fighting against a very brutal system in the department relating to his suspension as a regional commissioner. In each and every platform, arbitration, or even court cases, he has been repeatedly cleared of wrongdoing, and the department has been asked to reinstate him back to his job. This department, led by a lawyer who projects himself as a crusader for justice, has ignored court rulings relating to the reinstatement of the KZN Regional Commissioner. Why are you doing this, Mr. Lamola? To this day, the department has not cleared the air in as far as its corrupt dealings with Bosasa are concerned. While Bosasa might not be in the picture anymore, there are people who enable the looting of state resources in that department, and they are still there. Even though Bosasa as a company might not be involved anymore, the infrastructure for corruption is still there. There is no reason why an outside company should have been contracted to provide food to inmates anyway, for that matter. As we have seen in our oversight visits, inmates themselves can be used to produce food on the vast lands that the department owns. And inmates can be trained to prepare this food as part of their life training to enable them to lead productive lives when they get released from jail. Minister, the last time we checked, remand detainees made up almost a third of the South African prison population. And some of these people have been in remand custody for over 5 years. This speaks to the inefficiencies of administration in the criminal justice system, particularly the haphazard way in which the magistrate courts deal with cases of petty crimes. These remand detainees have no access to rehabilitative activities that convicted detainees have. This area must be addressed. Magistrates must expedite matters before them to ensure that there is finality in cases. Lastly, Minister, we condemn the privatization of correctional centers as your department seems to be promoting lately. The contract for the management of the Mangaung Correctional Facility awarded to the British security firm G4S, as well as that of the management of Kutama Sintumolem Correctional Center in Libombo, are a serious blight on the ability of the country to manage its own affairs. We must learn lessons from countries such as the US that have privatized prisons and see how deeply corrupt and inhumane the system of private prisons is. It is sad that all these reactionary developments in our justice system are happening under the leadership of a young person who once prided himself as a revolutionary. We have simply become a disgrace over the past few years, Minister. You're an embarrassment to the generation you once proclaimed to be leading. So therefore, we reject this budget.
Thank you very much, Honorable Yako. The next speaker will be Honorable Msimang. Professor Msimang, you are muted.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. It is undeniable that the COVID-19 pandemic had a great impact on the management of our correctional facilities and presented a unique public health problem. This situation forced the government to, for once, take action and deal with the long-standing issue of overcrowding in our correctional facilities, which has and continues to be a serious problem. According to the latest report of the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services, the impact of the special dispensation authorized by the President to bring forward parole dates of 19,000 non-violent incarcerated persons in May 2020, coupled with directives on measures to prevent the spread of the virus in January 21, undeniably had a direct impact on reducing overcrowding. In March 2020, the national overcrowding rate, according to the report, was at 32%, whereas in March 2021, the rate was massively reduced to 23%. This is an enormous accomplishment. However, it begs the question of why it took a pandemic for the department to take action and address a long-standing explosive situation. To applaud the department for its efforts denies the cold, hard fact that this reality has been compounded over the years. Very little action has been taken by the department despite meticulous reports of the Judicial Inspectorate of the state of our correctional facilities. The issue of overcrowding and bed space at our correctional facilities remains a critical issue demanding prompt action. Although the IFP welcomes the reports by the department regarding the building of new correctional centers and upgrades to facilities such as Mtongeni Correctional Center, which is apparently estimated to provide an additional 640 beds, much more needs to be done. The IFP remains highly concerned about the reports of security breaches at correctional facilities, such as the disturbing report in September last year, when 2 inmates serving sentences of rape and murder escaped from Leeuwkop Correctional Center, after which they allegedly kidnapped an infant during a house robbery. This type of serious security breach sharply calls into question the issue of consequence management as well as infrastructure concerns. In conclusion, the IFP also wishes to stress its concern over the filling of critical vacancies in department. The IFP accepts that the stark reality of budgetary reduces inevitably has a great impact on the department and its capacity, but the speed of filling critical vacancies is worrisome. In recent briefings by the department, it became clear to the portfolio committee that the position of a permanent national commissioner will in all likelihood to be filled before August 2022, which is unacceptable. The IFP will closely monitor the situation and interrogate the department's recruitment processes. The IFP supports the budget vote, and I thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nsima. Honorable Mulder.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. The rights of inmates are not an isolated issue. They have the political potential to directly and indirectly affect all of us. Prisoners are people, and as people, they constitute part of our society, and the department should carry out its mandate to rehabilitate offenders in their care, and they can change their behavior and become productive members of society upon their release. Chair, if the mandate of the department is, amongst others, to rehabilitate offenders in a correctional facility in their care, as the name of the department says, so that they can change their behavior and become productive members of the society upon the release, the question should be asked then, how could it be that the rehabilitation program is the second smallest allocated program in terms of the budget of the 2022-23 financial year? This program was only allocated 8.6% of the total budget of the Department of Correctional Services. Honourable Chair, in the 2021 budget report, the committee raised concerns about the ability of the community correction system to effectively manage the additional 19,000 parolees who will be released. The department was requested to provide the committee with the detailed plans on how committee corrections will manage the additional numbers. To date, the committee has not received that requested information. This House should know what happened to the 19,000 parolees and how they were managed after their release. It is unacceptable for the department not to have responded to the committee. Chair, the department should ensure that spending for the current financial year is prioritized because the financial allocation to the department will be reduced in the 2024-25 financial year. Therefore, Honourable Chair, the Freedom Front Plus cannot support this vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. The next speaker is Honorable Swart.
Thank you, House Chair and Honourable Minister. The ACDP is fully aware of the severe overcrowding at many of the correctional centres and that this negatively impacts on attempts at rehabilitation. One of the ways of addressing this is to reduce the number of awaiting trial detainees, many of whom may be not guilty of the crimes they are charged with. The Zondo Commission report highlighted how the department was captured by Basasa. What makes these findings particularly galling is that it follows the Jolly Commission of Inquiry into bribery and corruption at the department some years ago. Very little seems to have been done to implement the Jolly Commission recommendations to prevent a reoccurrence of what we have witnessed. And it will be important to ensure that additional beds are made available in correctional centres to ensure that all those comrades implicated in state capture and corruption can be issued with orange overalls after the funds they stole have been recovered. As far as the committee's report is concerned, the ACDP shares concerns that the department underspent its budget by 569 million. We question why the department should be allocated more funds when they were not able to spend their full allocation. Closer monitoring of departmental spending is most definitely required. The ACDP is pleased that rehabilitation will now also be offered to remand detainees. But as other speakers indicated, the skewed allocation of the budget in favor of incarceration and administration to the disadvantage of rehabilitation and social integration is regrettable. Rehabilitation should be at the center of all activities. We raised the issue of restorative justice programs in centers and welcome the fact that they'll be reintroduced after the COVID-19 lockdown. Lastly, the ACDP shares concerns about the slow pace of infrastructure projects in the department. A number of projects have been delayed for several years, including the Zanin Correctional Centre, which was only officially opened in 2020, some 20 years since the project commenced. This is totally unacceptable. We are equally concerned about security systems that are not operational in a number of facilities, including at Zanin and Grootplay centres. The budget must respond to security needs in facilities to ensure the safe and secure incarceration of inmates, as well as focusing on rehabilitation. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Swart. Honorable members, allow me to invite the Deputy Minister of Justice and Correctional Services responsible for correctional services. And Honorable Kasa will take over the proceedings. Thank you very much. The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Honorable House Chairperson, Mr. Mahlaule, Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Mr. Ozila Mula, Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Mr. John Jeffrey, Chairperson, members of the Portfolio Committee, honorable members, members of the public. Good afternoon. South Africa's NDP calls for, among others, the building of safe communities and the promotion of social cohesion. To this end, in contributing towards safe and empowered communities through sustainable economic development, one of the strategic focus areas of the Department of Correctional Services is the social reintegration of all those in its care. DCS regards the effective social reintegration of offenders as the most challenging and most crucial aspect of their rehabilitation. DCS also realizes that this is the point at which offenders are at their most vulnerable in their progression to sustainable correction and rehabilitation. Through the implementation of the DCS Social Reintegration Framework, the department seeks to create platforms and avenues for active participation and involvement of various stakeholders in the advancement of rehabilitation and social reintegration of offenders. The framework maps out processes to reposition the system of community corrections by professionalizing core functions of social reintegration, actively engaging the community and relevant stakeholders in the rehabilitation process, as well as providing interventions and services that are responsive to the risk and needs of parolees and probationers to eliminate reoffending and improve public safety. The social reintegration program is expected to spend 3.5 billion rand over the medium term, and 89.3% of the total budget of the program amounting to 3.1 billion rand is allocated to the supervision sub-program. Over the medium term, 141.8 million rand, which is 4.1% of the total program allocation, will be spent on leased community correctional centers, the community corrections offices rather. The department continues to facilitate restorative justice by also increasing the number of victims participating in restorative justice programs from 4,100 in 2022-2023 to 5,300 in 2024-2025. These dialogues are budgeted for in the community reintegration sub-program with an allocation of 183.3 million rand over the medium-term expenditure period. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected the execution of social integration processes, resulting in reduced physical monitoring of offenders and restorative justice programs, such as victim-offender dialogues and victim-offender mediations. For the past 3 years, DCS has recorded a 99% success rate of parolees and probationers complying with conditions of release. Although those who violated their conditions constituted 1%, some of them committed serious and violent crimes. The rate of recidivism in South Africa is widely believed to be unacceptably high. This deduction, however, is not very reliable, as there is currently no reliable system for monitoring recidivism or analyzing the trends in this regard. And thus, such a system will have to be developed and put in place in order for us to develop an understanding of the causes of reoffending and the effectiveness of rehabilitation and reintegration initiatives. DCS has embarked upon a scientific research program. The extent to which societal institutions such as the family units and other community institutions embrace correction as one of their basic functions will have an impact on successful social reintegration as well as the future rate of reoffending. The University of South Africa committed to providing guidance on the recognition of higher learning for the educational growth of community corrections officials. The Department of Home Affairs will extend their mobile services to offenders, parolees, and correctional officials, and will grant access to system reports to down-manage archived absconders, such as death notifications. The South African Police Service will process sample lists at their criminal record centers for system-generated reports for absconders. Available community service hubs will be extended to parolees and probationers, including access to economic opportunities, and joint operations with SEPs will be intensified to trace absconders. The aging fleet of vehicles across the 218 community corrections offices has been a common feature. The national drive to capacitate community corrections offices with an efficient fleet of vehicles has been realized, as 519 vehicles were sourced for community corrections across the country, which addressed 98% of the registered national need. This intervention will result in community corrections officials being sufficiently resourced to meet service delivery expectations to communities. Community corrections has also expedited the supply of other tools of trade in line with resolutions stemming from the 2019 community corrections in the project to distribute laptops is underway as part of the drive to improve the job effectiveness of community corrections officials. As per the white paper on corrections, the promotion of the spirit and practice of goodwill and sincere interaction between offenders and their communities and families and within the correctional center community is the vehicle through which rehabilitation can be promoted. Across South Africa, correctional services continues to avail various support measures, including donations from our officials' own pockets, as well as food donations such as vegetables, eggs, pork, and beef from our agricultural farms, abattoirs, and production workshops. We also provide assistance on infrastructure work relating to construction of buildings, electrical work, tiling, painting, plumbing, and general labor through our artisans, offenders, and parolees, among others. It is thus prudent for citizens to experience that the skills and talents inmates acquire behind bars are not offered only for the benefit of offenders, but must be utilized in supporting development structure projects and community-led initiative towards ensuring that all people in South Africa are and do feel safe. Honorable members, over the past year, oversight visits to various DCS management areas gave us first-hand experience on the challenges facing the staff of the department who operate at the coalface of our operations, that is, the correctional centers, as well as the opportunity to engage with inmates. Coupled with those visits, we have also undertaken a number of community outreach initiatives in partnership with our social partners, who include, among many others, SABC's FM, Metropolitan Life, Outpop, and Old Mutual. For instance, on 29 March 2022, together with the JICS, we undertook a working visit to the Uppington management area in the Free State Northern Cape region, where we also handed over dignity packs comprising sanitary towels and boxer shorts to young girls, as well as school backpacks to young boys, in partnership with All Mutual and Metropolitan Life at Orange Iver Primary School. A vegetable garden has also been established at the school, and like others elsewhere, is being maintained by parolees and probationers. During the same Uppington working visit, the department entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Marcus Peter Sindisa Secure School under the auspices of the Northern Cape Department of Education. In terms of this MOU, parolees will be trained in the manufacture of various wood products, including coffins, as part of their ongoing rehabilitation programs. The coffins will be given as charitable assistance to underprivileged families in the Davet Greyper local municipality. The relationship between DCS and the community, CBOs, NGOs, and FBOs is a sine qua non to the successful achievement of the rehabilitation and reintegration of offenders. In this regard, the department adopted the Mthatha-based Kwezi Lokusa Special School for the cerebral palsy and orthopedically challenged learners. In terms of this arrangement, we committed ourselves to continually provide cleaning, guardian, and maintenance services using parolee and probational labor. This model has been successfully replicated at Tlamiswe Special School in Maheng, where we also provided the school with fresh farm produce from Royfront Correctional Center. We are perforce constantly looking for opportunities in our communities where, within the parameters of the self-sufficiency and sustainability framework, we can be agents of positive change. Uppermost in our minds, House Chairperson, in our interventions as leadership, is to create a conducive working environment for our employees to be able to discharge their duties unhindered and motivated. To underline our commitment to the well-being of our employees, the department recently hosted a successful 3-day integrated employee health and wellness summit in St. Albans in the Eastern Cape, during which effective strategies were developed to cater for the physical, social, spiritual, and financial needs of officials who routinely perform their duties under risky and stressful conditions. Chairperson, without the leadership and support of the chairperson and members of the Justice and Correctional Services Portfolio Committee, the work of the department will be constrained, and I would therefore wish to place on record our sincere thanks and appreciation to them, even those who oppose the adoption of this budget. I also wish to thank the inspecting judge, Edwin Cameron, and his office for their enthusiasm and frankness in our engagement. A special word of gratitude goes to our dedicated and hands-on minister, Honorable Ronald O.C. Lamola, as well as all DCS officials led by Acting National Commissioner Makgoti Tobakal. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. Minister and honorable members, good afternoon. Can I indicate immediately the next speaker, Honorable Neville Draken, will have 9 minutes, as saved by Honorable Mark Wanishe. Can I recognize Honorable Neville Draken? Over to you.
Thank you, Acting Chairperson. Greetings to everyone, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister Holomisa, Honorable Deputy Minister John Jeffrey, and to all honorable members on this platform and those watching this debate. On the 4th of May 2022, the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services received a presentation from the Department of Correctional Services on the 2022 Annual Performance Plan. Chairperson, while the vision of the department is to provide the best correctional services for a safer South Africa, and the mission of the department is to contribute to a just, peaceful, and safer South Africa through effective and humane incarceration of inmates and the rehabilitation and social reintegration of offenders. The White Paper on Corrections of 2005 states that the rehabilitation is at the center of departmental activities, making it the core program of the department. Social reintegration provides services focused on offenders' preparation for release, the effective supervision of offenders placed under the system of community corrections, and the facilitation of their social reintegration into communities. The rehabilitation and social reintegration programs receive the smallest allocation of the total budget, and together they account for only 14%, where rehabilitation is 9% and social reintegration accounts for 5% of the total budget for 2022-23 financial year. Rehabilitation program has 3,304 personnel, which is up from 1,755 personnel in 21-22 and 73.8% of the budget, which is 1.713 billion, which is allocated to the compensation of employees. The social reintegration program is one of the two smallest programs, both in terms of budget and the number of employees. Social reintegration allocated 90% of its budget to compensation of employees. It also has the lowest personnel headcount, which is 1,954, and the lowest expenditure of 685 million. In the department's 2022 annual performance plan document, they mentioned that the risk register being inadequate systems for successful reintegration of offenders into the communities as law-abiding citizens. And secondly, inadequate provision and access to needs-based rehabilitation programs, services to inmates, which is psychosocial, correctional, spiritual, and care. As per the 2022 estimates of the National Expenditure, E&E, allocations to the rehabilitation program is expected to spend 7.1 billion over the medium term. This is 9.1 of the total vote allocation, of which 54 million is allocated for the implementation of the self-sufficiency and sustainable strategic framework. The social reintegration program has a negative average growth from 2021-22 to 2024-25, which is about minus 3.7%. The program is expected to spend 3.5 billion over the medium term, which is 4.4% of the total vote allocation. The committee continues to be concerned about the skewed allocation of the budget of the Department of Correctional Services in favor of incarceration and administration, to the disadvantage of more deserving programs, such as rehabilitation and social integration. The committee would like to emphasize that the white paper on corrections states that rehabilitation should be at the center of all departmental activities, as mentioned earlier. It is against this background that the committee calls upon the department to ensure that the budget responds to the call by the white paper on corrections. The overcrowding challenge is still one of the most vexing problems facing the department, as it stretches resources, hampers efforts of rehabilitation, and ultimately contributes to escapes, injuries, and unnatural deaths within the correctional services facilities. Overcrowding is still relevant today, as it was more than 50 years ago, when correctional centers were 40% overcrowded. On the international platform, overcrowding continues to be a prevalent phenomenon that has a long history of contributing to insufficient accommodation, inappropriate and aging infrastructure, as well as increasing levels of incarceration, and South Africa is no exception. The department's target for overcrowding is less than 32% in the 2022-23 financial year, while in 23-24, it will be less than 34% and less than 36% in 2024-25. In the previous financial year, the target for this indicator was less than 28%. However, in 2020-21, the department had managed to achieve its target under this indicator when overcrowding stood at less than 27% against the target of less than 38%. This target was achieved due to the implementation of the 2019 special remission and the special parole dispensation to release offenders who reach their minimum detention periods within the period of 60 months, sentenced for non-violent crimes. These releases were also a response to the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak. Best practices to reduce overcrowding call for concerted and comprehensive efforts on the part of the entire CJS, involving the cooperation and coordination of all criminal justice stakeholders. We, as the ANC, recommend for the support of vote 22. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. We now recognize Honorable Hendricks of Al-Jama. Honorable Hendricks. Hendricks is not there. Can we then move to Honorable Horn, who happened to have 2 additional minutes from Honorable Engelbrecht? Honorable Horn from the DA.
Thank you, Acting Chairperson. The successful rehabilitation of sentenced offenders is one of the core functions of the Department of Correctional Services. The Minister today has shared some examples of parolees who have gone on to achieve success in life and economic success. While these are to be celebrated, the exception to the rule can unfortunately never be used to disprove the rule. A number of factors negatively impact rehabilitation efforts in correctional centers, up to the point where it's doubtful whether every inmate in South African correctional centres are afforded a fair chance to be rehabilitated. While DCS insists that experts and professionals develop the content of rehabilitation programs, the annual performance plan does not contain any target aimed at measuring the efficacy of the content of programs or the implementation thereof. DCS uses the mantra that every official is a rehabilitating official, which on face value seems to indicate the seriousness with which DCS views this responsibility. However, we all know that admin officials and even some other uniformed officials, while maybe performing work essential to the functioning of correctional centres, never have direct contact with inmates. To include these officials when calculating the ratio of officials to offenders unfortunately prevents a reliable calculation and in no way accurately reflects whether the real human resources allocated to offender rehabilitation is sufficient. Another issue, Chair, is the involvement, or rather the lack thereof, of experts and professionals in the field of psychology, criminology, and other social sciences to ensure proper implementation of content-driven programs. In this regard, there is firstly an insufficient number of professionals on the staff establishment for correctional centres. In the face of further budget cuts, the real question is whether DCS is willing and able to relook at its staff establishment in order to ensure that this issue is addressed. Secondly, the inability of DCS to prevent perennially high vacancy rates in respect of the already too small professional component on its staff structure compounds this problem. Add to this the apparent inability of DCS to recruit sufficient number of artisans to ensure that all workshops operate at full capacity, which in turn would also maximize the vocational training component of rehabilitation if achieved. And it's clear that rehabilitation is unfortunately not the obsession it should be. Chair, rehabilitation is also severely hamstrung by the overcrowding of facilities. The reality is that the best rehabilitation program in the world will fail in circumstances where inmates live in overcrowded facilities. Overcrowding in our facilities remain very high, despite the frequent early release of sentenced offenders by this government. Minister, in your maiden budget speech in 2019, you announced that the addition of bed spaces through a bulk program was to be a key component of the plan to address overcrowding. Yet in terms of projects for new builds since then, only Parys and Mtongeni, which was identified at that stage, and which will add less than 800 bed spaces, has commenced. And Burgersdorp and Lichtenburg has been put on ice due to what is called by the department and yourself a lack of funds. Chair, while the ministers today claim, despite this, that the build program is something that is to be celebrated, the department, meanwhile, on the 4th of May, when we had our budget engagement with them, confirmed that only in the last year, 2,000 bed spaces were lost at our centres due to the fact that centres, or part of it, had to be decommissioned because it has become so dilapidated that it had to be declared to be no longer fit for use. Minister, while your sentiment that crime prevention is to be a key component of our program and our drive to prevent overcrowding going forward is a good sentiment, the question also has to be asked, if you and the Department of Justice, as intended, is going to ramp up and speed up prosecution of the thousands of cases on the criminal court backlog roll, is it really realistic to say that we must work towards preventing crime in order to prevent further overcrowding and the growth of overcrowding in our centres? Chair, the minister seemed to have argued that the commendable self-sufficiency project of DCS illustrates an overall culture of prudent use of public funds. Unfortunately, it does not. Apart from the budgets for the build programs always overrunning, if there is one project that clearly shows that this department is still spending as if they are able to print their own money, It is the Integrated Inmate Management System project. Advised by National Treasury at the time of awarding the initial 378 million rand tender to Integritron in 2016, that not only was this company prohibited from doing business with government, blacklisted, but also that the project specifications were setting the project up for failure. The contract was nonetheless awarded, ran out, and produced very little. In the face of growing criticism, the department has on different occasions presented different future pathways. At first, Integritron tried their best to make us believe that the complete project, without being paid another cent, was to be delivered by Integritron. Then the project was to be completed by in-house specialists, and of late other government entities are seemingly assisting. Targets on further development milestones and specifically rollout are, however, never met. But budget allocation remains a top priority of DCS, even in the face of further budget cuts. Minister, under your watch, DCS is not winning the war on overcrowding or prudent financial management. And consequently, rehabilitation efforts is at best far below par. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I again check Honorable Hendricks from Al-Jama if he is around? Honorable Hendricks. Honorable Hendricks, then let's move to Honorable Janji from the ANC. Honorable Janji.
Thank you very much. I just want to speak about 4 issues, Chair, just to demonstrate the clarity of policy of the ANC, but secondly, to also talk about the things that don't work, at the same time, share those things that we know are working. At the end, I will reflect on the incidentals of the opposition party.
Honorable Janji.
Chair.
We lost you, yes.
Oh, sorry. The ANC's efforts have been to convert the inhuman colonial and apartheid prisons, which dehumanize inmates, feeding a culture of violence and despair into correctional centers. The purpose of the correctional system is to contribute to maintaining and protecting a just, peaceful, and safe society. And objectives of the rehabilitation process, as summarized in the white paper, are there to correct offender behavior, enhance human development, and promote positive social values. I think, Minister, having listened to especially the opposition, it's best that we get into a conversations ourselves and be hard on ourselves about the kind of things that we have put in place in this country. We're taking the responsibility of the correctional centers. The ANC has been very consistent and there's a commitment towards rehabilitation. We can go back to Ready to Govern when we introduced this concept of rehabilitation. We can go back to 1997 when we said it's important that we create appropriate inmate water ratios, that we do a training and screening of warders, and even beyond that, in 2002, we emphasized the need for the system to be adequately resourced, which is corrections. And in 2012, we said we're concerned about the quality of our rehabilitation system and the parole system. But very recently, in 2017, as part of that clarity of policy, we've made the point, Minister, that says DCS has to regularly work with SAPS, to deal with some of the overcrowding issues, and I'm going to make an example of that. But recently we've launched and led a process of what we call an enhanced oversight model, whose purpose is to focus on the outcomes and the impact on public funds. And having undertaken this new initiative since January 2022, we now have a better clarity and understanding on the things that work. And amongst those, we now know, and everybody else has confirmed that from the minister, that this self-sufficiency initiative across the board is working. We saw that ourselves when we visited the correctional centers, whether it's about making uniform, abattoir, vegetables, plumbing, all sorts of issues. It is working, and we salute that. But we also can say that the deep dedication of our personnel, the staff that does a thankless job in all our centers, does work because they deal with what society does not want to deal with. They are at the last end of this value chain. We've also observed, Chair, that when DCS takes initiatives on its own, either on issues of security or infrastructure, those things work. We've seen that in Kalakabusha around the issue of security, the kind of pilot project that works there and moving away from the lock and key kind of an arrangement. A beautiful initiative. We've seen that it works. We would have seen it many others where DCS then says, in terms of this issue of infrastructure, this is what we want to do. And therefore, we're saying we might need to replicate a lot of those things. You have indicated on the issue of education as well as the chairperson on that this formal education is one of the things that work. And therefore, we must embrace and appreciate all of those things that work as part of this scorecard. But Minister, there remains many issues, many stubborn challenges that we've got to deal with. One, the issue of contrabands. The issue of contraband smuggling is in twofold. It's done internally and externally. Externally, we found it problematic because there are people who want to make business out of this. And what they do, they would lead vulnerable communities that need housing and start informal dwelling settlements next to some of these correctional centers in order for them to transport this. And we have been very clear on this as to the collaboration within human settlements as well as correctional services, where they actively want to transport these drugs to a point of even getting into shootings against the security personnel. But more worrying is the internal transferring or smuggling of contrabands. And we're given examples of methods that we use, and I'm going to be very granular in this. We're told in St. Albans that men use, these are officials in the DCS, they use their boots to hide these contrabands. But with women, it got more worrying how vulnerable they can be abused in all of this. So they would either use their braids, but in more severe instances where they would even go further and put these things inside a condom and put them somewhere inside their body in order to transfer them, including in the breast, so that when a man comes closer, he must be said, "You are harassing me." We're made to know how these are happening, and it became clear to us that the officials, DCS, is beginning to deal with this. And part of the solution to that is what is called body scanners, which we're very excited about. But the problem with the body scanners, which were shown, were demonstrated to us that they'll only be working in July because of issues of resources and certificate. Because if you have those body scanners, it doesn't matter who, everything else you've hid in your body will be seen. We appreciate that, we salute that. When it comes to the issue of overcrowding, which is a stifling issue for us to achieve this rehabilitation, it became clear that in many remand detainees sections, we have this. Eastern Cape was raised as a province topping this. And some of us got worried as to really what is it that makes Eastern Cape to be leading in overcrowding compared to the Western Cape or Gauteng for that matter. But upon further scrutiny, it becomes clear, Minister, that the problems DCS has of overcrowding are a failure of another section or sphere. Because in the Eastern Cape, when in Makanda, the court does not work because of water, many cases get postponed. They increase these remand detainees, whether it's issues of electricity. So the non-performance of a court is increasing the overcrowding. But it's not that Eastern Cape is leading in murder rates. I mean, for purposes of completeness, here is a top 30 stations of murder. Out of that top 30 stations of murder, Eastern Cape appears once at number 24, and that is East London. And so it doesn't correlate that it has this kind of overcrowding, but the overcrowding has to do with poor performance in other integrated matters, which speaks to that resolution that was said in 2017 about disintegration. And this overcrowding worrying is that the face of this overcrowding is young, is black, but more so it is African. This is the overcrowding that we saw. Whether it is in Durban, Westville, it is in Portsmouth, it is in Tanzania prison, or in St. Albans, where we went. But we also were very worried, and we think that we're going to be watching this space around the failures of the parolee system. Because when they presented to us, it became clear that for now, they don't have an answer. The high rate of absconding is very worrying around the parolee. And when you are not able to have your handle on those that have absconded, they are likely to be arrested the next day because they would have re-offended. That's a worry for us, and we want to attend that quite properly. We've already started a process with JICS as the portfolio committee that we're going to soon going to have a workshop as part of attending to this overcrowding, where we're looking at how do we reduce this remand detainees overcrowding around those sentences, those bails that should be reduced or either do away with. Because many of them are spending a year, the bail of 500, bail of this, and so on. And therefore, this oversight has really reactivated us to be very firm around those kind of issues. One of the issues that I think needs to be attended around security is the perimeter fencing. That needs to be attended to because it gets to be an attraction to those that are planning many of these kind of issues. And then you've got the issue of infrastructure. Very dilapidated. Many of these centers have been built 30, 20 years ago. Public Works has a role to play, but the issues that you have here go beyond Public Works. Again, it speaks about the whole of government kind of attacking this particular issue as opposed to a one-dimensional magic wand that is going to be Public Works. And I know that some of the colleagues here, especially from the Democratic Alliance, when they deal with the issue of Public Works, they seem to be playing the person and not the ball. And I won't mention the name in that regard. Honorable Jano Engelbrecht, I think you need to stay steady. I see that you're still learning the trade. What makes me happy is that at this stage, you have not been contaminated with the DA venom in terms of how you want to understand many of these kind of issues. Yes, EFF, having traveled with us, rejects the solutions to this problem. Because when they say they reject this budget, that's exactly what they mean, that nothing must be done. And hence, Minister, I thought the conversation must not be with all of them. These are incidentals. We on the stage, these are our issues. None of them have spoken to any policy matters. None of them have put on the table intervention as to what needs to happen. We have to deal with those issues, and we're ready to deal with those, and we'll work with them until we achieve what we need to achieve. As of Honorable Mulder, all I can say is to invite him, at least in one committee meeting, to participate so that he can, when he comes here, speak with authority about some of the issues of our correctional services that we're dealing with on a daily basis. I pause there, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm affected by load shedding. Honorable Minister, you have additional 4 minutes saved from the Deputy Minister. Can I now recognize you?
Yeah, thank you very much, House Chairperson. And I also appreciate and thank all honorable members for their inputs. And they've raised various issues. I want to deal firstly with the inaccuracies and then deal with the way forward. Firstly, Chairperson, the issue of that the department has an underspending of 1.1 billion by Honorable Bredenbach is inaccurate, and it is not within the bounds of that underspending. The underspending is an amount of 240 million out of 25 billion rand, which we are not justifying, but we are saying when honorable members give numbers, those numbers must be accurate. And also, there has been another inaccurate statement by Honorable Yako on the issue of Mr. Ngele, that we are sitting with a lot of court orders that have cleared Mr. Ngele of any wrongdoing. I want to state here, Honorable House Chairperson, that we do not have such a court order. All the matters that relate to Mr. Ngele have been won or lost on technicalities. The department's position is that the matters must be dealt with on their merits or demerits, and the judgment that must come on the matter must be on the basis of merits. We have nothing against Mr. Ngele. Myself in particular, Honorable Chair, I have previously recommended on the instruction of on the recommendations of the Public Service Commission to the department to reappoint Mr. Ngele and to review his dismissal. So that is a clear indication that I've got nothing against Mr. Ngele. But I'm saying the matters that are allegations on him, the outcomes of SIU investigations, and all allegations against him must be tested in a forum, and the cases must be dealt with on merits or demerits. It is also very confusing that Honorable Yako speaks about this and then jumps to the Bosasa matter that we are not doing anything, and cite officials that they've been accused or alleged on the Bosasa matter. And in that regard, she misses that also Mr. Ngele is one of the people alleged or in the report of Bosasa from the Commission of Inquiry that the department has to respond to. So all this points to the confusion of Honorable Yako. I will deal with how we can deal with this confusion later. The other inaccuracies come from Honorable Nsimang, who also gave us a very good report, which we agree with. The only point I want to raise is that the remissions by the president did not only happen when there was COVID-19. In December 2019, before there was a COVID, the president did a remission to deal with the issues of security, issues of overcrowding in our correctional facility. If you will remember, that was on the reconciliation day. And I agree with most of the members when they speak about issues of security breach, which are also a concern to all of us. The issue of overcrowding, I must repeat again, Honorable Horn, This is a matter which society must grapple with. It's not only a matter for correctional service. We need to deal with the socio-economic challenges in our country. We need to ensure that we deal with crime and the crime levels goes down, because this will mean that we are going to have less criminals convicted who must come into the correctional facilities. There is no country in the world that builds prisons or correctional facilities at the same pace as conviction in anywhere in the world. And I also want to deal with another inaccuracy, also again from Honorable Yako, that speak about the issue of privatization of prisons. We have appeared in many instances in the committee, and we have assured the committee and told the committee ourselves out of our own initiative that we are not going to renew the contracts of the private prisons in Makado, Kutamas and Tumula, and the one in Bloemfontein, out of our own initiative. So this excitement that we are handled somewhere in the US and all that, it's a figment of imagination. On the issue of the issues that relates to also another inaccuracy, that the overcrowding, Honorable Horn, that it is increasing. It is not true. I stated here from the beginning that overcrowding has reduced from by 12.99%, almost a reduction of about 12.99% is not small, it's huge. And it's what we must work on to work within this space that we currently have. Indeed, the infrastructure programs and the infrastructure bill program, while there are beds that are being added, we need to do more, also working with public works. And as we have reported to the committee, that we are dealing with the issue that relates to the devolution of some of the powers that the department can be able to do and handle some of the matters for us to handle some of these capital projects. And we also want to state that the budget, Honorable House Chairperson, must be looked in context. The context is that it cannot be compartmentalized. The budget is interlinked. The one also dealing with rehabilitation, as honorable members raises the point. We are also looking at that, and also the budget in administration and corrections. All the budget is interlinked, and it helps the department to deal with these issues in an integrated manner and respond to the rehabilitation. And everything is geared towards ensuring that there's rehabilitation. And we also want to state that indeed it's a huge achievement that we can today estimate about 139 million savings that will come out of this project of self-sustainability. It's a key achievement that we must continue to celebrate, and we will never be persuaded by anyone not to celebrate an achievement. If this amount was stolen or going to be stolen, this was going to be headlines all over. And this is not stolen, it's government at work, aim and estimating that this is going to be a saving that all of us must work towards ensuring, and our estimates are very clear that we'll be able because of the self-sustainability program. And I want to also state that I don't know why the EFF has replaced Honorable Mlaudzi, who was a member of this committee, with Honorable Yako, who is adding no value to the committee. She comes here with no open mind. Even if we give her information, it does not help her with anything. I really pray that one day Honorable Mlaudzi will come back to the committee and help to add value. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. That concludes the debate and the business of this virtual mini plenary session. The mini plenary will now rise. Thank you very much.